Hello, welcome to Myer Realty's Commercial Corner. This week you've got Fred Myer and Bob Lunsford. We told Scott to take a break. He was getting a little overheated, needed to go cool off, so we said, take a break this week, Scott.
His head was going to explode.
It was. This radio show does weird things to folks, and he's one of those folks. Right? Right, Kelly? That's right.
Definitely.
We have Kelly on video here. He's doing a great job. Welcome to the show this week. If you want to call in, the call-in number is 844-790-8255. If you want to text in, 775-237-2266. And today we are going to talk about lease. Well, what are we going to talk about, Bob?
Actually, what we're going to talk about is business owners and whether it's more advantageous to them to purchase or lease.
Right. Purchase or lease. So that's where we're at. So, and we kind of touched on some of this, I think. Well, lease buyback.
Sale lease back.
Sale lease, yeah.
Discussed that a few weeks ago.
We discussed that a few weeks ago, but this is a little different. This would be before that. You got to buy it before you can sell it to lease it back. So Bob is going to delve into some of the pros and cons of that. So go ahead, Bob, and then you can
Okay, well,
start.
this is really predicated on a business owner, and let's say a business owner is starting up a business, and he has his business plan and everything, and he's contemplating whether it's more advantageous to him, both in the short term and the long term, to purchase a property or lease. And it's really it's kind of a mixed question, or a mixed answer, I guess, rather more accurately, because there may be various stages of his business career that it's more advantageous to him to purchase at one point as opposed to leasing, or vice versa. So there are, significant financial and tax implications to that decision.
So starting out, though, probably somebody is not going to be ready to buy it. Because
Well, it may be that a person has a well-established business. Let's say he has a franchise somewhere, and he has a solid financial position, and he's looking at this as a long-term thing, and it might be more advantageous for him to buy at that point. So even early in his business career. But let's just say there's sort of a typical small business user. Maybe he's not a franchise owner. Maybe he's just starting a business or something like that. So there are some questions, some considerations of that. For example, a guy that's going to use his own property, a business owner that's going to use his own property, may want to preserve his cash flow to reinvest in the business, to build the business, to make sure he has enough working capital, for example. So that person is probably not going to want to buy a property. He's going to look at leasing. Sometimes, a store chain, fast food outlet, other franchise operators that use their location in the operation, they again may want to reinvest that money in their business. So, they're going to hang on to it. However, an owner that is looking at a site in a long-term horizon, he's sure he's going to stay in that location, he's got a good business plan, he's going to want to perhaps consider a highly leveraged position. That is, to buy a property or build a property even in one location and then stay in that location. Let's say he needs a purpose-built building.
With a big fat loan, is that what you're saying?
Well, with a big fat loan. And for example, Fred and I are dealing with now some people who are looking at commercial kitchens, and some of those people are they're ready to buy a property because they have a thriving business. They can look at a solid location. Commercial kitchens in this city are tough to come by right now.
Yeah.
So that's one of the considerations for, let's say, a guy that's starting out. the long and the short of that stage of your business career certainly is the use of capital. Do you want to use the capital to reinvest in your business, or do you want to consider that you're going to build a building or occupy a building as an owner, and you're going to stay in that position for quite some time?
Yeah, letting go of your capital can be tricky, because sometimes as a business owner, you just don't know when you might need it. If you put it in the building, it's locked up, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So let's say that business owner goes down the line a little bit, and he's several years in, he's got a well-established business and everything. He's got a location that's, works for him. It's, tailored to his specific needs of his operation. So he, at that stage of his business career, might be faced with a decision in which there are other questions that are raised. For example, the owner at that position has the security of owning the property. That is, he knows that he controls the use of that property going forward. He knows what his costs are to occupy that property. So he's satisfied with that situation. The improvement of that property, whether it's expansion or something like that, gives him a form of tax shelter through depreciation, because he is depreciating that property. So he has some tax advantages.
So as an owner, yeah, he's depreciating. Okay.
So he's also, at that case, if he's got a mortgage on the property, he's building equity, right? Just through an amortizing loan. He's building equity every month.
And he's also getting to write off the interest
Expense, that's right.
Yeah.
So there are, pros and cons to that situation where, there's tax implications, there's cash flow issues that have to be considered. Basically, he's in a good position if he's, satisfied with his location and everything. But let's say towards the end stages of his property, he is, or the end stages of his business, he's deciding that he wants to retire in, the next 5 years, 10 years, something like that. He also, let's say, is considering the idea of using that money, that equity that he's built up over the years for some other purpose. Let's say that, maybe he wants to expand the business in the case of getting ready to sell it. Maybe he wants to expand it, hold it another 10 or 15 years, whatever. But let's say he wants to free up some of his equity in that building after owning it for several years. And so he, at that point, would be faced with this decision to consider what's called a sale-leaseback. And we talked about that a little bit, but there's distinct benefits and, I guess, detriments, considerations to either position, right? To continue to own or to do a sale-leaseback. And actually, there are somewhat complicated tax issues that any business owner should consult with their CPA to review.
Yeah. We came across a situation where there was a property for sale recently in our office that the gentleman needed to generate cash, but he really didn't want to sell. So what he did was he sold it, and he did a first right of refusal to buy it back.
Right.
Which is a great way to sort of generate capital, actually fairly cheaply, because you don't have a lot of loan fees and things. There are some fees, I guess, involved with that, but it's not like you're going out and pulling.
Well, it really, when you bring that up, it's maybe the best of all worlds, because if he sells the property but then has an option in 5 years, 10 years or something to buy it back, then he frees up that capital, he can expand his business, then he's in a better financial position to buy it back.
And he still controls that property.
And he still controls the property.
With that first right of refusal, nobody else can really jump in there and become his landlord without him allowing it.
Exactly.
Wow.
He wouldn't, in that case, he wouldn't control the price, let's say, but he's got a first right of refusal on any offers that do come in. Or maybe alternatively, he just negotiates an option to buy it back. and whether the buyer at that point agrees to that or not is all negotiable.
Yeah, but a great way to have maintain the control that you want as an owner to house your business. You want to be able to control where your business is living. But we're coming up on our first break, Bob. So we will be right back. Stay tuned. Tell your friends. We're exciting. It's Fred and Bob. It's the Fred and Bob Show. We'll be right back.
Reno Tile Tonight magazine celebrates the art.
Hello, we are back. It is Myer Realty's Commercial Corner. I got it right twice.
Wait. Is there an S on Myers?
No. Yeah, well, with a comma.
No, that's on Myer Realty's Commercial Corner.
Myer Realty's. Oh, you're
Not
right.
both of them aren't plural.
You're right. Myers Realty's Commercials Corners. No, we're just goofing around here a little bit. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. It's Fred Myer and Bob Lunsford from Myer Commercial Realty here, and we are here to help inform the public about some things going on in our area and things to do with commercial real estate. If you'd like to call in, we'd love to hear from you, 844-790-8255. If you'd like to text, excuse me, I had to swallow there, 775-237-2266. And we are going to jump back into, Bob is going to jump back into finish up what we started off with.
Yeah, we were talking about actually in the case of a business owner, and often this is obviously a single tenant business owner in which he occupies a building substantially. He controls that building in any event. He may have a few other tenants, but he controls the building. But so we were talking about the stages of his business career. At some point, it's more advantageous for him to lease early stages, maybe the middle stages of his business career. Maybe it's a toss-up, but maybe towards the waning stages of his business career, or maybe for other reasons, maybe he wants to do some expansion or something. But let's say that he's bought that building early on in his career, and he's built up a substantial amount of equity. And so we were talking about a concept called a sale leaseback, where he frees up that equity, right? He's built up hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of equity, and he wants to use that. He either wants to retire, he wants to buy another business, he wants to expand his business, whatever the reason, he wants to free up that capital. So there are, as I had mentioned, complex tax and financial implications to this transaction, but typically it works in a situation where he's using that capital to move forward. So some of the benefits on the sale of a property as a business owner might be that again, all that money is freed up to him for other uses. The business owner's balance sheet could improve. For example, he's moving liabilities from, let's say, the mortgage of that building, and he's moving that from the liability side to the asset side. For example, he's got all this capital freed up. His expenses going forward would be the cost of occupying that property on a lease. So he's got to consider that situation where, he's on the one hand freeing up equity, on the other hand he's got operating expenses that have increased. He's basically moving that lease from to an operator. He's considering it as an operating lease. He's also got to consider that building is, maybe he did a purpose-built building, so it's sort of tailored specifically to his needs. And does he want to continue to occupy that space for, a shorter term or a longer term?
Or reduce the amount of space he occupies.
or reduce the amount of the space that he occupies.
Kind of like that one, we're working on one right now that's happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The in a financial sense, it may be that the proceeds of that sale going forward, he might be able to get a better financial return than he has on the appreciation of that building. So he may have an opportunity to reinvest in his own business, in another business, in whatever, in which he can gain a greater return. So why not in that situation?
Yeah.
The business owner usually in a situation like that will sort of dictate the terms of the lease back. That is, it is a negotiable point, but he can set out his terms, and if the buyer coming in is agreeable to those terms, then the owner is set the course forward under his own requirements.
And that is the beauty, really, is that the owner can do that, right?
Exactly. He still, in effect, controls the property.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the beautiful aspects of that, I think.
There are drawbacks from his standpoint too. That he would have to consider the gain on that real estate sale, which is taxable, of course, and that's where you should consult with a CPA.
Well, you could tax defer, exchange your way out of that as well. So it depends on what a guy wants to do, I guess, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So, in summary, it's really up to the individual owner, and like I say, just to reiterate this, to review this, it may be that early on in his career, it's better as a lease to free up capital, as much working capital as possible to reinvest in the business. Maybe at the middle years, it's a toss-up if what he wants to continue on that lease or buy the property, and maybe at the waning stages, the latter stages of his business career, it may be that he wants to take that money and use it for other purposes. So, but still continue in business. So, to sell the property and lease it back is the best of all worlds for him.
Yeah. So I want to touch on the one that I touched on a second ago, which is kind of an interesting one because it sort of is a little different, but it's the same thing really, and it's this one we're working on right now, which basically the seller I don't want to call him a down and outer, but his business is in contraction mode. So he has a 15,000 square foot building. He really only needs 5,000 feet of. So, but he's going to master lease, at least we think he is, master lease the whole building so that the buyer coming in really has just him to deal with, the current owner, as he will be the tenant, master tenant we call it, and he will sublet the rest of the space out, and actually he can sublet that for whatever he'd like to and make the spread between what he's charged by the new buyer on the square foot pricing and what he wants to charge his
good
tenants.
idea.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
So it's a great way for a guy to contract his business and slowly go out, maybe, right? So he's not as busy as he was, or doesn't want to be as busy as he was historically, and so it's a great way to go sort of down and out slowly.
So really, if you're a business owner out there and you want to get into the weeds of this, please give us a call.
Yeah.
Call Fred at 745-2918 or Bob 250-7171. We can pencil this out for you, and we can show you the ins and outs, the advantages, the disadvantages. I've got a lot more information that I can convey to you in this type of situation to on a sale leaseback, or we can just sort of conceptually pencil this out in your business career going forward, and maybe what works best for you. We can help you find a spot, or we can help you buy a spot.
Right. We have, if you're interested in selling and entertaining this, we have buyers lined up. I mean, almost
absolutely,
literally lined up, looking for especially something like this, because when you have when you're a buyer, an investor, and you come into a marketplace and you've got a guy who's been living in the building for X amount of years, 5, 10 years, and he wants to do this to free capital for one of the many reasons that Bob has interjected here, it's a very solid way for a guy to 1031 his way and or just, buy a building, an investment that he can feel really good about because he knows the guy living in there has been living in there and he knows the building and he's comfortable, and so it's just a great way to put a win-win deal together, I think. So thank you very much for that, Bob. That was very informative. And I'd like to touch on something that was in today's paper. The
yesterday's paper, I
yesterday?
believe that was,
Oh,
yes.
excuse me. $1.2 billion downtown project in the works. Oh my gosh, man, this is a game changer on the west side of town, which we've seen nothing on the west side of town. So very exciting to see somebody taking an interest on the west side of town, because we do some business on the west side of town. We live on the west side of town. Our office is at 1155 West 4th Street. And so we're very excited to see someone coming in with something, a redevelopment project for a 17-acre area of basically distressed downtown property, which is just great. It's going to have 2.3 million square feet of residential space and another 2 non-gaming hotels, 700,000 square feet of office and retail space, and more than 5,000 parking places on 17 acres of distressed downtown property. So where it's going to be is it's bound by the train trench to the north, and then First Street on the south, Arlington Avenue on the east, and Washington Street on the west. And that is going to be incredible. I mean, I just can't even believe the kind of impact that's going to have.
I think it's very exciting, but I think, and this is in the early stages. This is, I believe they were going for before the city council today to provide more information and detail. But one of the interesting aspects of this is the developer was actually going to foot the infrastructure costs up front with his own nickel, and then he was going to be reimbursed by tax awards or advantages after the property was up and running. So,
that's kind of rude. You just start that music like that. I mean, what's going on? We are in the middle of a conversation.
The computer does it.
Oh,
I don't have
gosh,
no
darn.
control.
Anyway, we are going to have to go away for another week. We will miss you. We hope to see you next week. Please come back and visit with us. Fred Myer, Bob Lunsford, Myer Realty. Thank you very much.